The city still glimmered above her, a skin of neon veins crawling across the night. Emma walked beneath it in silence, her reflection warped in every mirrored panel of the towers. 5 years ago, she had loved this view. Back when she was Michael's wife, back when invitations arrived daily to step into these very towers and dine at the floating halls where her name had meant something. Now she was invisible. People still knew her face. Recognition flickered sometimes in the public corridors, across hollow billboards, in the shifting eyes of acquaintances who wondered if she was the same Emma Hart who had once headlined society's live stream feeds with Michael Rutherford. They rarely approached, though. A ghost carried an aura, and Emma had worn that aura since the crash. The crash had nearly killed her. Bone fused to steel, skin knitted through biogel, nerves retrained by months of pain that clawed through her like fire. She had survived, but in the way people whispered, survived but diminished. Michael had left soon after. Not with cruelty, not with a fight, but with that clean detachment he was famous for. His words still rang clear. "You're not the same, Em. We're not the same. I need something brighter." And then there was Claudia. Brighter, yes, sparkling, always ready to broadcast her own radiance. She'd slipped into Emma's world as though she'd been rehearsing for the role. Emma stopped in front of the glass facade of the transport hub. A hollow screen pulsed in her periphery. Claudia's face beamed from the corner of an advert, laughing as she leaned into Michael's arm. A luxury resort in orbit around Europa, promising rejuvenation and true connection. Her stomach didn't twist anymore. Not the way it had that first year, when grief and humiliation blurred together until she barely ate. Now the sight of Claudia was a steady throb, not a wound. What the family didn't know, what none of them cared enough to ask, was that while Emma rebuilt herself, she hadn't just healed. She had built something new. It had started small, almost accidental. A prototype she'd invested in from her hospital bed, a wellness interface designed to synchronize mind and body through neural feedback loops. Emma had tested it during recovery. The effect was real, subtle but undeniable. Clarity sharpened, pain lessened, discipline returned. She saw potential when most dismissed it as fringe pseudoscience. 2 years later, she wasn't just recovered. She was founder and CEO of Leora, a wellness startup quietly surging through the city's corporate veins. The system wasn't flashy, not the kind of product that got socialites competing for limited editions. It was steady, effective, and addictive in the healthiest way. Clinics wanted it, corporations wanted it, investors wanted it. But Emma hadn't announced it. She hadn't joined the circuit of self-branding feeds or plastered her face across campaign launches. Silence had been her armor. The family believed she lived off her $11 million inheritance, clinging to it like a lifeline. That suited her fine. She pressed her palm to the sensor pad and entered the hub. The transport capsule hissed, doors gliding shut, cocooning her in violet light. The city streaked away in a blur of neon. She let herself breathe. Tomorrow she would face them. The invitation had arrived 2 days ago, a dinner at the Rutherford estate. Claudia's name had been on the bottom, digitally signed with an unnecessary flourish. Emma had almost deleted it. Almost, but something in her had stiffened, not for revenge, not to prove herself. She wanted to see if she could stand in that hall again and not feel like a ghost. The Rutherford estate sprawled across the cliffs overlooking the bay, an architectural relic augmented with layers of tech. From the outside, it still looked like stone and glass, but inside, every wall shimmered with holoskins, able to transform into any illusion Claudia desired. Emma remembered when the halls felt warm, when the dinners were long, and Michael's father still laughed at his own stories. That warmth had drained away with him. Now the family gatherings were theatre. Emma stepped into her apartment capsule, minimalist, clean, nothing like the sprawling penthouse she once called home. She pulled open the wardrobe. Rows of sleek garments hung waiting, adaptive fabric able to shift tone or shimmer with a pulse of her neural signal. She ignored the dresses. Claudia would arrive shimmering like a jewel, dripping with new couture. Emma chose instead a simple black suit. Tailored, graceful, not a performance, an anchor. When she looked in the mirror, the scar across her collarbone caught the light. She didn't hide it. The scar was part of her story, proof she had survived what none of them could imagine. Her wristcom blinked. A message. Not from Claudia, not from Michael, from Richard, Michael's uncle, the kind of man who treated every family dinner as a board meeting. Emma, good of you to attend tomorrow. It will be enlightening. Don't worry, Claudia means well. Her lips curved. Claudia didn't mean well, but Emma typed no reply. The following evening, the transport carried her up the cliff roads. The estate loomed, lit with subtle waves of bioluminescent flora woven into the stone. Drones hovered like fireflies, guiding vehicles into the courtyard. Emma stepped out, her shoes clicking softly against the polished stone. Heads turned as she entered the atrium. The air carried a manufactured scent, expensive orchids spliced to bloom perpetually. Music floated, strings overlaid with digital harmonics. Guests shimmered in gowns that refracted light, in suits that projected subtle status metrics, investment indexes, follower counts, curated feeds of triumph. Her arrival triggered no fanfare. Some heads turned, some eyes flicked with recognition, some lips curled with whispers. Is that her? Emma? Didn't think she'd show? Brave or desperate? Emma kept walking, posture straight. Claudia appeared first, radiant in silver that shifted tones as she moved, her neckline dripping with nanogems programmed to sparkle in waves. She glided forward with a smile so wide it verged on parody. Emma, she cooed, air-kissing both cheeks. How wonderful you could come. We were all just saying how long it's been. You look, well enough, Emma said evenly. Claudia's eyes flicked to the suit, to the unadorned lines of fabric. Emma saw the smirk forming before Claudia spoke. So understated. Very authentic, Emma inclined her head, letting the barb pass. Claudia wanted reaction. She wouldn't get it. Michael appeared at Claudia's side, as if summoned. He looked older than she remembered, the sharpness in his jaw softened, his hair streaked faintly silver. His eyes met hers for only a second before sliding away. Emma, he said. Nothing more. Michael. The pause between them stretched, then broke as Claudia looped her hand through his arm and drew him back toward the crowd. The dining hall blazed with light, chandeliers sculpted from kinetic glass that pulsed in rhythm with the music. Long tables stretched beneath them, laid with crystalware and utensils lined in auric plating. Screens embedded in the surface displayed subtle streams of wealth data beside each guest's name, portfolio highlights, philanthropic contributions, curated successes. Emma's section was blank. She had disabled the feature. The empty screen drew whispers, smirks. She sat near the far end, positioned carefully between a cousin who ran a failing import business and an aunt whose primary hobby was collecting scandal. Across from her sat a man she hadn't expected, Daniel Vale. Daniel. He was older than when she'd last seen him, sharper around the edges, but the same quiet energy clung to him. He was an investor, a strategist who had once circled Michael's ventures but never fully bought in. Tonight his suit shimmered with muted blue light, understated compared to the peacocks around him. He looked at her, really looked, and smiled. Not pity, not mockery, recognition. The meal began with ceremony, servants gliding soundlessly, dishes arriving in a choreography of steam and colour. Conversation swelled, Claudia's laughter high and sweet, cousins trading barbs disguised as compliments. Emma ate quietly, listening. The Maldives villa was simply divine, Claudia was saying. We needed the break after the strain of expanding Michael's portfolio. You know how demanding global branding can be. Nods, murmurs of admiration. Claudia's gaze flicked sideways, ensuring Emma heard every word. Emma sipped her wine. Its flavor was crisp, metallic undertones woven with engineered florals. She didn't respond. The cousin beside her leaned closer. "So, Emma," he said loudly, "how are you keeping yourself busy these days?" Still, enjoying the inheritance. A ripple of amusement travelled down the table. Claudia's lips twitched. Emma set her glass down, the crystal ringing faintly. Before she could speak, Daniel's voice cut across. "Funny," he said, his tone light but carrying. "I thought I was sitting next to the most impressive person here." Silence for a beat, then a few chuckles. Claudia's eyes narrowed. Emma turned to him, half smiling. "Careful. You'll ruin my reputation as the family underdog." Daniel smirked. Some reputations are worth ruining. The tension shifted. Guests leaned in, curious. Claudia's smile stiffened. Emma lifted her glass again, letting the silence stretch. She didn't need to add more. For once, silence worked in her favor. The servers flowed like shadows, clearing plates without sound, replacing wine glasses with new pours that glowed faintly under the chandelier light. Conversation picked up again, but now Emma felt threads of attention snagging on her, invisible lines tightening across the long table. Claudia filled the air with her voice. She was good at it, too good. Every sentence performed, every laugh at perfect pitch, every gesture calculated to make her bangles shimmer like cascades of liquid silver. She leaned toward Michael often, touching his arm as if to remind everyone that he was hers now. "And of course," Claudia continued, "our trip to Europa's rings was simply unforgettable. The view from the orbital resort, breathtaking. But really, it's the exclusivity that matters. Only 50 suites, can you imagine? And Michael ensured we had the premier wing. Gasps of appreciation. A cousin murmured about the waiting list, another about the cost. Claudia soaked it in like sunlight. Emma cut her lamb with quiet precision. The meat was engineered, too perfect to be real, its fibers aligned to mimic tradition. She chewed, swallowed, and kept her eyes lowered. Then a voice broke through. "Richard again, Michael's uncle." "Tell me, Emma," he said too loudly, "are you still pursuing anything? A project, a passion, or just enjoying the slower life?" The cousin to her left snickered. "Slow is one word for it." Laughter rolled like surf. Emma kept her expression even, but her hand tightened under the table, nails pressing against her palm. Before she spoke, Daniel's voice slid in again, easy but edged. "Interesting. I just finalized a deal with one of the most promising ventures in the city. You'll never guess who's behind it." The laughter dimmed. Eyes turned. Daniel gestured lazily across the table, wineglass in hand. "Emma!" The silence was immediate, charged. Even Claudia froze, her smile caught halfway. "Her company is extraordinary," Daniel went on, ignoring the shock. "A wellness platform that doesn't just promise better living, but proves it. Clinics are lining up, corporations too. It's one of the fastest growing networks I've seen in years." The air thickened. Guests exchanged glances. Emma felt heat climb her chest, but not from embarrassment, from the sheer force of being seen. She met Daniel's eyes, steady. "You didn't need to say that." "Didn't I?" he replied softly, just for her. Across the table, Claudia's laughter returned, brittle this time. "Oh, Daniel, you always did exaggerate. I'm sure Emma's little project is charming, but scale matters, doesn't it? Vision without resources only goes so far." Emma lifted her glass. "True, and yet sometimes scale follows results." A ripple of amusement flickered around the table, not cruel this time, curious, respectful. Claudia's smile thinned. The next course arrived, glowing spheres of engineered fruit encased in spun sugar shells. When tapped, the shells cracked with tiny sparks, releasing perfumed steam. Gasps and delighted murmurs rose as guests prodded their plates. Emma tapped hers gently. The sugar fractured, a burst of citrus and warmth filling her senses. Beside her, the cousin leaned in again, testing. "So, Emma, this wellness company, what's it really worth? Surely not enough to compete with Michael's ventures." Emma smiled faintly. "Competing has never been my goal," Daniel chuckled low, not bothering to hide it. "That's because she's already winning in a different field." The cousin blinked, unsettled. Claudia's head snapped toward Daniel, eyes sharp. Emma felt a current pass under the table, his hand brushing hers as he reached for the wine bottle, a touch so fleeting she might have imagined it. But it lingered in her skin, a spark running up her arm. She glanced up. His gaze caught hers, steady, glinting with something unspoken. She looked away, pulse quickening. Claudia, sensing the shift, redoubled her efforts. She launched into stories of luxury, of Michael's latest deals, of the exclusivity of their circle. Each tale glistened with money, but the air around her grew taut, strained. The more she boasted, the more silence pressed in around her. Finally, one of the aunts, sharp-tongued, always watching, tilted her head. "Emma, dear, is it true your company's expanding overseas?" Claudia's head whipped around. "Overseas?" Emma set down her fork, meeting the aunt's gaze calmly. "We're exploring opportunities, yes." "Opportunities," Claudia repeated, the word tasting bitter. Daniel leaned back in his chair, smiling lazily. "I believe the contracts are nearly finalized. A clinic in New Geneva, isn't it? And a corporate campus in Kyoto." Emma didn't confirm. She didn't need to. The ripple of whispers said enough. Claudia's laughter returned, too high. "Well, isn't that ambitious? Truly, Emma, it's brave of you." "Bravery isn't the point," Emma said softly. "It's about creating something that lasts." The chandelier light shifted, sensing the emotional charge. From golden white it deepened into a warmer amber, glowing like firelight. Faces around the table softened, expressions tilting toward her. Claudia saw it, and she burned. Dessert plates cleared, glasses refilled. The air hummed with the faint vibration of the estate's climate field, keeping the room at perfect temperature. Yet Claudia fanned herself with delicate fingers, restless. She leaned into Michael, whispering, but her eyes darted toward Emma. Michael barely responded, his expression flat. Daniel filled the silence, asking Emma questions, not the shallow, pointed ones the family wielded, but genuine curiosity. "What was the hardest part of starting over?" Emma hesitated, then truthfully, "Believing I wasn't broken." The table went still, a few faces softened. Claudia's jaw tightened. Daniel's gaze held hers. "You were never broken, just underestimated." The words hit her chest like a spark against tinder. She smiled, small but real. "You flatter easily." "Not easily," he murmured. Another brush of his hand as he poured wine, fingers grazing hers deliberately this time. Heat shot through her, unexpected, unsteadying. She pulled her hand back slowly, not abruptly, aware of Claudia's eyes watching. The final course lingered. Voices grew looser with wine, laughter softer, more hesitant. Emma found herself speaking more, answering questions not with pride, but with clarity. Her company wasn't a weapon, it was a truth. And the truth reshaped the air around her. Claudia, cornered, tried once more. She raised her glass high. "To family," she declared, voice bright. "To unity. To those who know how to rise again when fortune favors them." A dig, sharp and obvious. But Daniel was faster. He raised his own glass, voice cutting clean through the room. "To Emma. Proof that resilience, brains, and heart outshine anything money alone can buy." The silence that followed was immense. Then, bound by etiquette, the family raised their glasses. To Emma, the words echoed. Claudia's smile faltered just for an instant. Michael's jaw tightened. Emma simply inclined her head, accepting with quiet grace. Her hand trembled slightly against the glass, not from nerves, from release. As the dinner wound toward its end, Claudia tried again, her voice honeyed but thin. "Of course, darling Emma, you were lucky. That inheritance gave you the start you needed. Not everyone has such fortune." Emma stood, placing her glass down gently. She looked at Claudia, then at the table, her voice warm but edged with steel. "Luck only carries you so far. The rest is who you are when no one believes in you." The silence was absolute. No one laughed, no one smirked. Claudia's smile cracked. Michael stared at the tablecloth. Emma felt the weight lift from her shoulders. She didn't need their applause. She had taken back her place without raising her voice, without cruelty. Just truth. And when Daniel offered his arm at the door, steady, respectful, almost tender, she took it. Together they walked out, whispers swirling behind them. Admiration, envy, disbelief. For the first time in years, Emma didn't care what they said. She had her own story, her own victory, and she had won without playing their game. The air outside the dining hall tasted cooler, less perfumed. Emma hadn't realized how heavy the room had been until she stepped free of it, Daniel's arm steady beneath her hand. The murmurs of family still buzzed behind them, faint through the double doors. But out here, the marble corridor echoed only with their footsteps. "You handled that beautifully," Daniel said, voice low, meant only for her. Emma gave a small laugh. "I thought I was going to choke on that toast." "Didn't look like it. You looked untouchable." She glanced at him, skeptical. "Untouchable? Hardly. They saw the scar. They always do." "They saw what you wanted them to see," he corrected, eyes catching hers. "Strength." Something flickered in her chest, part disbelief, part warmth. She looked away, focusing on the corridor's hollow light panels, glowing pale blue with each step. They passed a group of servers whispering as they cleared dessert trays. Emma caught her own name among the hushed tones. The servers froze when she looked over, then quickly bowed their heads and hurried away. For the first time, their whispers hadn't carried pity. They'd sounded like admiration. Daniel slowed as they reached the atrium, where the glass walls opened onto the cliffside. Below, the ocean gleamed black, flecked with the shimmer of drones moving like fireflies. "Emma," he said softly. She turned. He didn't fill the silence immediately. He simply looked at her, gaze steady, warm, almost dangerous in its openness. The sound of the ocean pressed into the pores. "What?" she asked finally, half smiling. "You don't realize, do you?" "Realize what?" "How every person in that room, even the ones who despise you, couldn't stop watching you tonight." Her smile faltered. She searched his face, trying to find irony, but there was none, just truth. She exhaled. "That wasn't me. That was circumstance. Circumstance doesn't teach someone to hold their ground without raising their voice," he said. "That was all you." His words landed heavier than the toast. She looked away first, her pulse ticking faster. Behind them, the double doors creaked. Claudia emerged, Michael trailing a few paces behind. Her gown shimmered too brightly now, overcompensating, her smile stretched thin. "Emma," Claudia called, her voice pitched to carry. Emma turned slowly. Daniel stayed beside her, posture loose, unreadable but solid. Claudia approached, every step a performance. "I wanted to say how impressed I am." "Truly, not everyone could reinvent themselves so well. But of course it's easier when one has the cushion you did. Most people never get that kind of start." There it was, the final jab. Michael looked down, clearly uncomfortable, but he didn't intervene. Claudia's gaze glittered, hungry for a slip, a flinch. Emma's lips curved, calm. She let the silence stretch until Claudia shifted slightly, unsure. Then she spoke, voice warm but edged. "Luck only carries you so far," she said, echoing her words from earlier, sharper this time. "The rest is who you are when no one believes in you." The corridor seemed to still around them. Even the hum of the climate field faded. Claudia's smile cracked. Just a flicker, but enough. Michael's eyes darted away. Emma didn't wait for a reply. She turned to Daniel, who offered his arm again. Without hesitation, she took it. Together they walked toward the exit, leaving Claudia standing in the glow of her own fading light. Outside, the night air wrapped cool around her. The estate's floating lanterns bobbed gently, casting trails of gold across the cliffside path. The transport cars hovered in neat rows, engines humming softly. Emma paused at the steps, inhaling the salt of the ocean. For the first time in years, the air didn't taste heavy. Daniel watched her. "You didn't just survive tonight," he said. "You shifted the whole field." She shook her head. "I didn't plan to. I only wanted to stand there without shrinking." "And you did. But you also reminded them what real power looks like." She studied him in the lantern light. His face was open, but there was steel beneath, the kind that had made him dangerous in boardrooms. And yet here he was, lending that steel to her, not against her. "Why?" she asked. "Why what? Why say all that? Why back me tonight?" His smile was small, almost private. "Because it's the truth. And because I like watching someone rewrite the story everyone else thought was finished." Her heart thudded, slow but heavy. She looked at the transport waiting, then back at him. "That sounds dangerously close to flattery. Maybe it is." Silence stretched again, charged but not uncomfortable. He didn't move closer, didn't press, just waited. Emma finally let herself smile, not the controlled one she'd worn all night, but something freer. "Careful, Daniel. You'll ruin my reputation as the family underdog." He laughed softly. "Good. That reputation never suited you." As they entered the transport together, Emma glanced back once. Through the glass of the estate, she could still see figures moving in the dining hall, their postures different now, glances sharper, conversations muted. The balance had shifted, but she felt no triumph, just release. The transport lifted smoothly, carrying them into the night sky. The city spread below, neon arteries glowing. Once this view had been tied to Michael, to the life she'd lost. Tonight it was hers again, unbound. Daniel leaned back in his seat, watching her rather than the city. "What happens now?" Emma looked out at the towers, the endless lights. "Now? I keep building, on my own terms and the family." "They'll talk," she said. "They'll envy. They'll recalculate their alliances, but I don't need their approval." Daniel nodded slowly. "No, but they need yours now." The thought made her laugh, quiet, disbelieving, but real. She let it fade into silence, the hum of the transport filling the air. For the first time in a long time, Emma felt not like a ghost, but like herself, whole, strong, seen. And as the city opened before her, endless and alive, she realized she had never needed revenge. The truth had been enough. The transport cut across the skyline, two figures silhouetted against neon and starlight. Behind them, whispers of envy and admiration spread through the Rutherford estate like wildfire. Ahead, the city waited, vast, merciless, full of possibility. Emma leaned into her own silence, not broken now, but steady, resilient, herself. She didn't need to win their game. She had written a new one. And Daniel's quiet presence beside her, steady and warm, was just the beginning of something she hadn't dared imagine. Not revenge, not triumph, but connection. The city lights reflected in her eyes as she smiled to herself. She had turned the tables without raising a hand, and she wasn't done yet.